Hello, everyone. And this is a fantastic Saturday evening. And what makes it very special for us is that we are going to all go on a trip down the memory lane. The best kind of trips that there can be, especially that these are the times of lockdowns and we have been stuck at home with ourselves, learning to live with ourselves and learning new ropes, new ways of living in the new normal. What you see right now on the screen, it could appear to you as 15 odd regular faces, but they are not. What we really are
Just wait for a while. We are going live now.
No, you are already live.
Right now we are live.
Okay.
I'll go with the introduction one more time in case we weren't caught on camera the previous time I did that. So what you see right now on the screen is 14, 15 of us, regular ones, it seems to you perhaps, grown up, boring adults, but we are just in adult clothes. We are really the 8-year-old ones who just a week back took the plunge and decided that we are going to revisit that little child that we once were at 8 years. The willingness, the readiness, the courage to open our heart, to be that child again, to try to be that child again, is what brings us all together. And what warms our heart and what makes us believe that as big as we may grow through time, there is that part of us which loves joy, which loves the mischief, which wants to become that child again. So with that little prelude, I set on today's session, and our topic, as you know, is nothing but a trip down the memory lane. Dear me in search of the inner child. Our screen is full, our hearts are full, and we are all of us, a few of us who were on the board of juries to have to do the hard work of reading all the letters and to comment on them. Some of us were the letter writers who wrote the real letters to visit that child back in time. What I'll right now do is to bring upon one fantastic human being I know closely and I have the honor to introduce to you, Suchitra. Suchitra is very difficult to catch in words. I would give up on that. She's a multidisciplinary artist, but more than that, if you ask me, I think she knows how to be that child still every day. And it shows on her face with the glow, as you can see yourself. I hand it over to you, Suchitra, and you take us through what you have in mind for the next few minutes.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Sinjini, for having us at the Lighthouse. When we were having our talk last time, and you said that you wanted to know about self-care and how we can keep the creative child alive. So I want to talk about that and tell you how I feel about it. It all begins with you. So it follows that you need to take care of yourself before you can gather strength to take care of anybody or anything else in life. And the self-care we know has to be on various levels. It's physical, it's mental, emotional, social, and then we progress to spiritual dimension as well. But I think self-care is basically about opening more space, inner space, and that is important at all levels. Now, if I had one word to do that, it would be play. The creative play, that springs like a bubble from deep within us. At the Lighthouse, we play with words. So first, I want to do a little poem for you, because you play with words and you'll understand it all. I tried to teach my child with books. He gave me only puzzled looks. I tried to teach my child with words. They passed by him, often unheard. Despairingly, I turned aside. How shall I teach this child? I cried. Into my hand, he put the key. Come, he said, play with me. So I would say that play is the royal road to keeping that child alive and kicking. And if it's not that alive, then that's the road that will reconnect us to it. Because this inner child is simply a psychologically younger self of us. We can't help growing. We have to grow up, like it or not. But the beauty is that when we strengthen the adult in us, that's where we also meet the inner child. Now, I want you very much to experience it right now. So would you like to have a go at it? Yes? So Sinjini, I'm going to request you to unmute everybody. We're already in the gallery mode.
Sure, tech support. My tech master is Anirban. Please help. And everyone, please unmute yourselves.
Yeah.
Yes, Shalini, you're still muted. I see. Everyone, you can just unmute
Jyoti,
yourselves.
Kamalji.
Okay.
And Anirban yourself. Neena ji.
Yes. So now, what I have in my hands is this ball. Okay, beautiful ball. And I'm going to throw it at you. When I'm throwing it at you, you have to catch it. I'm going to throw and I'm going to say, woo, okay? And you're going to catch it and you're going to also do, woo, okay? So we're going to do that little, as you're going to throw it up, down, side, we're going to catch it, right? Ready for it? Oh, it's a laughter ball. So it might spill a bit. Here it goes.
Ooh.
Well, you all did great. So let's clap for ourselves. Do you feel lighter?
Yes.
That's because you're at the lighthouse.
Thank you.
But I just wanted you to experience a little bit that this is the energy that we get from unstructured play, because that play comes from our imagination. And that's what eases us, it enlivens us. And then we carry that same energy wherever we are, with whoever you are, with whatever you're doing, with what happens, how you remember what happened, and you're able to release it. And in the end, gradually, you learn to make life your playground. So that's my little introduction to my play. The magic key that I want to say is what you should always keep in your pocket. So back to you, Sinjini.
Wow. Wow. There's so much to chew upon from where you started. And as much you said, whether we enjoyed or not, and we tried to say yes, I think each one of us are a little guilty and little ashamed that we couldn't quite let go of the fact that we are on camera and people are watching us. And that is where we need to work really hard. Thank you so much for that experience. I think there could have been no better way to start this than what you just did. Somadipta, I'll come to you. First thing, and just picking up where Suchitra left us, almost like little children left us to find our way back home. The thing about free play, and to contrast with that, the idea of discipline. At 8 years old, I read it in each one of your letter, whether you said it in open words or you didn't. There was always that angry red eyes of your parents or your teachers. That contrast between free play and discipline, and back then, and we being all brought up, I am assuming, by industrial age parents, where they thought that the road to success is to be disciplined and to listen to your parent, and we would steal away, not that we listen to them. And now, Somadipta, in particular, just to lay the context of where I'm coming to, all these different kind of ambitions and different kind of careers, which our parents could never think of, which uses all our faculties that we developed while not listening to them. Right. I mean, we didn't get, brownie points for towing the line. I think now we are getting brownie points for the creative bend and for being that person who was standing out, outstanding student standing out of class. You yourself have a very fantastic life, I think, with how, so many things that you do, and the mix of that interdisciplinary that you bring to your work of creation. Could you talk to us a little bit about that difference between free play and discipline, the difference between dream and ambition, and how it all shapes up? What do we do as parents to give that leeway to our children?
My kid just doesn't listen to me. That's the first thing. So, that's where I start. As far as when I was growing up, I think I'm at a particular age where, how would I say it? A pretty, 80s is when I remember things, early 80s. I was a kid. I'm not a kid, I would say 14, 15 years old, early 80s, right? Things were different. Today, things are different. I think how you manage is a very, everybody has a perspective, so nothing is right or wrong. So, but one thing is very clear, what I got from my parents was I was let go. And the only thing my father told me at one given point of time was, it's your life. If you mess it up, it's you who are, you're going to blame yourself. You're not going to come back and blame me. Okay. So that was very relieving. And it finally, let me be what I am. And there was no binding whatsoever. So that's what I think, even today, if you step back, at the end of the day, we all understand, no matter whether we, educate ourselves, we go to schools, institutes, whatever. But at the end of the day, what you like is going to finally play out. What you are good at, you find out much later. When you are 16, 17, you usually don't, somebody says you want to be a doctor, engineer, or whatever, especially in the Indian context, right? I don't think it works out. I mean, it may work out by suppressing your feelings or what you want to be. So it's a different life, so a lot of people, I think, get into that trap, and some they don't come out of it. And some they do. I think there's a risk involved in it. The question is, are you ready to take the risk and let go of things and, see how things pan out? Or basically, be a little guarded. I think it's with everybody, nothing special. I had a fun life, no complaints at all. Yeah, if I had completely messed it up, I would have messed it up, and it would be my fault rather than my parents. So if you really look at it from that perspective, I don't know. I leave it up to you guys to, kind of figure it out, I guess.
Thank you. That was quite politically correct answer, but thank you. Yes, a lot of what you say is right, and there is this constant dilemma, I think, for all of us who are here on the screen and who are parents. I think there is a constant dilemma. Part of us are guilty of playing our own, we hated our parents, but now we are doing enough to make our kids hate us back just the same way. So yes, but let's pretend we are 8 years old now, that I will, each one of you, as you answer the questions I will ask you, I want you to really, revisit the point from which you wrote that letter. Because I picked up a few ideas, few authentic moments of your letters, and I thought it might be a good idea to revisit that. Because Farah was the first one to write the letter and to almost assure me that this campaign is happening. Honestly, it's such an anxiety to put it out in the world and hold your breath and hold your heart, and nobody's responding. And then there is this one ping on your phone, and somebody wrote it. So Farah, my first note of gratitude and my first question to you. You talk about something that was very close to my heart. You talk about hand-me-down sweater. I was like, I am sure each one of us who are not perhaps, very, very wealthy or something, out of, we all know the pain and the solemn feeling of hand-me-downs. We have all been there. We have all hated that idea. You said that you had a sweater which you handed down then to your daughter. And also the other thing that spoke to me from your letter to your 8-year-old self was how in the middle of not being able to articulate or navigate all the emotions that come to an 8-year-old, your pen came to your rescue and you use the pen to tackle your emotions. So I want to place these 2 points in front of you and ask you what you thought, and if you could share a little bit more about, those ideas of hand-me-down and emotions.
See, when I saw this, I was really impressed with that writing a letter to a 8-year-old really spoke to me, because I have a kid now. And so I thought that I should try this, and I did that. And my kids were very excited that Mama is going to enter a contest. I said, let me write a letter then. And Hand Me Down has really gone a whole trajectory. Now it is really, kept as a heirloom thing. But when we were growing up, it was not a heirloom. It was like, okay, it is there. So, but when I saw my daughter wearing that, I could really connect with that feeling, because that sweater had been worn by me, by my sister, by my cousin, and then finally my daughter. And I was so grateful to the universe for, for my mom to keep it all the time and give it to me when my daughter was born. So that really spoke to me. And words, yes, definitely, because when I was growing up, there were so many things which I couldn't articulate, that why we are the only females, in the kitchen. And how come the daughters only had to do certain things and the sons didn't have to do in the larger context. So that really puzzled me. And as I grew, I used to write all this. And as I grew, I found the words to describe what I feel. And then that's how the letter came.
So lovely to hear that. And so true. I mean, the gendered, of course, there is no denying, no playing around the fact that our childhood was very gendered. Unfortunately, we thought things will change over time, but it hasn't changed in a way we hope to see. The difference, the gendered nature of our childhood came across very well through many of your letters. I thought I'll come to that point a little later because it's a little more serious. So let's start off with a few more ideas which are more nostalgic in nature, but we need to come to this point as well. So what I wanted to ask next is let me decide. How about I ask the next question to Vidya. Vidya ji, yes. Hi. You said that you spoke about the stories that we heard and how to be a protagonist in your own story. I think that was a word, something that you wrote. I'm sure you wrote it understanding what it means, and it takes a lifetime to mean that and to arrive at that, to become the protagonist of your own story. And you being of the female gender, this has a bigger connotation. I would love to hear from you how your journey has been as a protagonist of your own story.
I was born as the third daughter in a lower middle class family growing up in Mumbai. So the gender limitations were already placed. Like, you're a daughter and you're the third daughter. So it makes a lot of difference. And as a result of which, I felt my parents had to walk a further mile to keep everything together. My mother was the oldest in her family, my father the oldest in his family. So somewhere unwittingly, they did pass on to us that sense of responsibility. Maybe a tad before our time. But then we loved our parents because we knew they were really working so hard. They were doing the best they were doing. So you wanted to take the load off them. And there was nobody to tell the 8-year-old me that was not my job. The 8-year-old me was not supposed to be doing it, but I was doing it. And then, everything is put in terms of a mandated life, and this is what you have to do to get ahead. But sometimes life doesn't work like that, no? And then when you walk the path, make those sacrifices of little joys and don't arrive on the promised land, then the level of disappointment is something completely different. That the 8-year-old again doesn't understand. Because the 8-year-old is also traveling inside. The 8-year-old asks you questions. You said if I did A, B, C, it would be D, E, F. Where is A? Where is F? And when there is a gender layer added to this, it becomes that much more complicated. But then I made my amends to my daughter. I told her, you are free. Free in the real sense of, because I was blessed. I married a man who gave me financial stability. So I was blessed. So I said, I can give you these options, which were not presented to an 8-year-old me. And I told her, you are free to do what makes you happy. Doesn't matter, success will come or not come. But are you happy doing what you're doing? And being able to give her that choice in itself was deeply empowering, not just to me as a mother at 54, but to the 8-year-old child who is journeying within me. So I said, your ending may have been in a certain way, but every ending doesn't have to be like that. You today have the power to change endings, or at least let people discover their own, without having pre-written endings handed over. This is what I have to say. And it's in fact one of the themes of one of the poems I've written in Hindi, which is like, the cotton candy man used to make Hanuman with 1 rupee. You could get cotton candy in the shape of Hanuman, but it cost 1 rupee. And the 8-year-old me would not understand why I cannot buy that 1 rupee Hanuman. Whereas for 5 paisa, you get a piece of cotton candy. My parents would say, cotton candy tastes the same. Why do you insist that it has to be in the shape of the Hanuman? And I have still not been able to explain to the 8-year-old me why. Because in some ways, I've not been able to explain myself.
So much for sharing, Vidya. Really, we are really so touched.
These are the moments of pause that it doesn't matter if we are live,
Very
it doesn't
touching.
matter if the clock is ticking, but you feel like taking a moment of pause and,
And Sinjini, this is when the life energy gets trapped in these old memories, and that's where your storytelling comes in. So I want to ask you, I think this is a good time to ask you how the inner child exploration is a critical first step of the storytelling. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you so much for asking that. It is a very big question, actually. When I teach storytelling sessions on personal growth and leadership, one slide I put up in front of my learners is the story of David. And with that, I put up the quote, which is attributed to Michelangelo, which says that, I didn't create him. I saw an angel stuck in a marble, and I just chiseled and set him free. I carved and I chiseled till I could set him free. I somehow think of our inner child as that angel stuck in us, and we have become stones through the process of life. It may sound a little solemn and a little cynical, but it is also true to some extent that there is, the man box and the women box, and a certain way to be, you being judged by the scores, mark sheets, the next job, the next promotion, the next admission, and everyone is being marked by the same direction, whereas we are all 360-degree people. So I keep talking about this angel stuck in a stone. And I also talk about the messy middles. Some stories are ready to be told, some stories are processing inside us, and it is our job to work on them, not to just say that those are messy and leave them aside. I mean, It is a lifetime's work, but we should be hard at work on that. What I try to do with storytelling is to ready the artist and ready the art. Because whatever we do, if we have cleared the channel inside us, if we have come to that arrival and acceptance and realize whatever happens to us happens for us. It's a process of deep consciousness. It's a process of self-forgiving. I think our creativity starts there. And to put it into perspective, how it is useful and important in our regular life. Of course, we can as well live our whole life not thinking about any of this, going boozing on Friday evenings and slaughtering and coming back to work and calling it Monday blues when it happens to us. That's definitely one way of living life. But unfortunately, that way of living life is not working out more so recently. If you look around all the big industries in the world, if you see, they're all born out of garages, out of first generation entrepreneurs. This day today is the age of ideas. We are not contesting with machines. We are not sharing the pie and jostling over space with each other. We now know that it's not a zero-sum game. It's a big, big, big universe. We all have a share. Money is energy. Money is not even what is minted by the mints. It's energy. It's really the power of self and the self realization that we are as big or as small as we want us to be. And that starts with stories, because what power do you have on the faculty of anybody else? I cannot be powerful because I can only have that much muscle and that much bicep, even if I go to gym every day. My real power comes from my access to other people's faculty. If you think of Steve Jobs, if you think of Mother Teresa, if you think of Hitler, if you think of Barack Obama, if you think of Mahatma Gandhi, all of them, they were powerful leaders, not because they were very powerful physically or spiritually, but because they had access to other people's faculty. Whatever they said, others believed. And to be able to develop that, we have to first believe in ourselves, first be visible to ourselves, first be understood and assured. And I think that inner child work or coming home to ourselves is the first step to whatever we do in life. It shows its manifestation in terms of our professional growth, our personal branding, our social acceptance, status, whatever. But first, it gives a lot of peace to ourselves. We have a good night's sleep and we think of ourselves, we look in the mirror and we don't see the freckles. We see that smile and the twinkle in the eye, which belongs to that 8-year-old, which is why this campaign is so dear to me. It really is dear to me because I feel that Lighthouse needed to start its first step with the child in it. Without the joy, we can talk of activism and awareness, but we'll be soon bored of it. We have to first make peace with ourselves, and that happens long back.
That's right.
We all have wounded children inside us, and we better make peace and make friendship with that child. And as Anirban wrote in his letter, even if the child calls us uncles or aunties, we still talk to them and make peace with them.
And I'm reading the letters and listening to Vidya and to you. I feel, something, we have all experienced it in some shades. So whether we are listening or writing, in some way, we are unsticking it, it's getting unstuck. And we are now also starting to digest it and integrate it. So thank you, Sinjini. You have really, given through Lighthouse an amazing new way to write our life narrative. And I think you can also tell us a little bit about Lighthouse, because not everybody would be aware about that. So please.
Oh, thank you so much for that opportunity. I'll keep it short because I want to move on to asking everybody else about their 8-year-old selves.
I thought this would be a good talk.
Yes, but to give you a little glimpse of what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to reimagine personal growth and leadership. Be it community leadership, be it self-leadership, be it corporate leadership. I'm trying to reimagine personal growth and leadership with authenticity, empathy, and a whole lot of coming home to ourselves. By that, I mean that if we can stand up and speak our truth, if we can be seen and be heard and be understood for who we truly are. And when we open our heart and when we tell our stories, we realize, I'm sure when we heard Vidya, many of us are like, me too. I also wanted something my parents didn't give us. And when we are having that story stuck inside us, we think we are alone in it. There's shame, there's guilt, there's so much of unprocessed emotions. But the moment we open our mouth, it's like, me too. Everyone felt the same way. And that is what I want to harness, because there's so much power in that community feeling. We don't have to be angry about so many things that are wrong. We can be joyfully making changes. And my model really is authentic storytelling, joyful change making, and creative leadership. Because creativity is not like only few people are creative. Everybody is creative. All of us at 8 years old drew pictures and made puppets out of mud. Where did that go? When did we stop? I want to bring that back in our lives, and also to show people it doesn't have to be on your Saturday evenings. It can become a part of your professional growth, because once you are creative, once you open your perspective, you realize it's not a zero-sum game. You automatically become so much more articulate. I have seen that with my life. I've spoken to computer in number language for 12 years, had a professional burnout, and then took a total swerve and rediscovered myself through writing and speaking. And I've seen what it does to own your narrative and to stand up and speak your truth. So I'm just trying to, share that gift that I got over my last few years of very intense journey through my swerve. So that's my purpose with Lighthouse, to help you be seen and heard and understood for the person that you truly are.
It's
Thank you, Suchitra.
So important. And we have Shalini here, who I know has also been on a similar journey, because she was a career hotelier and then just chucked it up and then went and went into the art world. Shalini,
Wow.
you unmute yourself maybe and tell us.
Sure. Shalini, I'll also take this opportunity to maybe ask you the next question then. So I had written down about Shalini, also about the hand-me-down, and what you couldn't get through your childhood, you now promise to give that and live that second childhood through your children.
Yeah.
And you touched upon the cycle of life, which Anirban also touched upon in a very different way in his letter. But to you, Shalini, the cycle of life and living that second childhood through your children. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, first of all, about my childhood, I wouldn't say surprisingly, but I don't have sad or negative memories. Maybe my parents were strict, but well, if I wanted to do something, I did it my day. So, like I wrote in that, if everyone wanted to pose for a photograph, it was their issue. I did not want to, I wanted to be the way I was and dance around, and you take your photograph with me in the frame. That's it. And what happens is, during the course of life, that boldness or that belief in yourself gets, I think it gets corroded, for the want of a better word, because you're told that, not directly maybe, but indirectly you're told, नहीं ये मत करना, वो कर लो, नौकरी अच्छी मिलेगी, and all that thing that happens. So I became a hotelier because when I was in 12th, I realized that in 3 years, my father would retire. And I wanted a job in hand. And graduation wouldn't get me a proper job, or so I thought in that time. So I was told, do hotel management, you'll at least get a supervisor's job. I said, cool, that's good for me. And I did hotel management, but of course, I worked hard. I did some good things, I think. But I think somewhere down the line, after 29, 30 years, I realized, nahin, ye nahi chalta. I want something more. So you do try to go back to what you loved and what is you intrinsically. And then you keep getting pulled back into this life that you must have. So that balance, I think I finally found it now when I said, okay, so far, so good. Now I want to do my stuff. And I'm enjoying it. I have no regrets about any step I took. I don't have any negative memories about anything. No, very good memories about everything. And I want to keep it like that. Yeah, like children don't remember too much of negative knowingly. Subconsciously it may be there, but knowingly they don't remember. I think I'm still in that phase. And I'm happy.
Lovely, lovely, awesome.
And
Next,
for
I
me,
come to, yes, please.
and for me, the hand-me-downs were a joy. I used to be thrilled because we got one dress on our birthday, which my mother stitched. And I remember each and every dress that she stitched for me. And believe it or not, I've stitched so many similar dresses for my daughter. You know, I had a dress like that, okay, I'll make one for you. But for me, it was a joy. My first salwar kameez with a dupatta, which is such a grown-up thing when you were a kid, was my cousin's. I used to flaunt it. I used to wear it. I was so thrilled. And in fact, after reading this letter, my cousin called me up from US and we discussed all the hand-me-downs that we had got, including the ones that she got from me. So for me, it was such a beautiful part of my childhood, getting those old clothes, and I was thrilled. I got clothes, that's all.
So lovely. That's awesome. I mean, that's totally a, spinning it on its head. And that's also a very important and very loving perspective.
Yeah.
Also, I now want to take this opportunity to come to one of the male participants. And I don't identify you as a male participant, but why I say this is, it is very interesting. Oftentimes we, of course, and very, very legitimately so, we have our gendered narratives, and that is, I'm not at all going to say I'm discounting it even by a single percentage. However, the society or the way, whatever it works, I mean, we are part of society. We are as much perpetrators as we are sufferers. There are certain man boxes and the women boxes that we all get trapped into. When I read the letters today one more time, I took down notes, and Mallika, who's not here in this panel today, but she wrote about skin color. And then I stumbled upon another letter, which was also about skin color. And about, I'm sure many of us would identify putting dollops of Fair and Lovely on our skin. And I remember me and my brother fighting over a tube of Fair and Lovely, he going away to his boarding school and he taking away my tub of Fair and Lovely. And I am, complaining to my mother, he took it away. It was so ingrained in us that we wanted it. Now I cannot turn back and say that, why did you buy it to me? Because the thing is that you develop that yearning. And I'm asking you, Nafis, you spoke about skin color. You spoke about being soft and sensitive. And that was a moment of pause for me, because we very easily assume that there are certain things that we reel under as girls so much, we forget that we are both part of a similar journey in perhaps, opposite sides of the coin, but it's still the same coin. Nafis, if you can talk a little bit about your journey through this letter.
At the very outset, Sinjani, आपने कहा कि ये लेटर आपने लिखा. जब मैंने लेटर लिखा और मैंने अपनी वाइफ को दिखाया, तो she said, very well written, and I know you are a sensitive guy, and you wrote it. मैंने कहा, yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning, where will I go? So she also pointed out on that part, that cream part. I wrote Fair and Lovely. She said, put it, cream. Now the reason behind that cream is my elder brothers are, fair. Or, both of them are, doctors and very, जो मैंने जिक्र भी किया है लेटर में, they were studious and वो एक pressure था मेरे ऊपर कि भाई पढ़ो and all that. So जब मेरी पैदाइश हुई, I was a very weak child, ricket का शिकार था. So डॉक्टर ने प्रिस्क्राइब किया कि भाई in order to save this child, you need to take him to village and all that. So इस वजह से till the age of 7.5, I was in village only, and then I was all tanned, और एक स्टोरी मुझसे अक्सर कहा जाता था घर पे, सिंस मैंने दोनों बड़े भाई बहुत गोरे थे, तो यार तुम्हें तो हम वो गार्बेज के डब्बे से उठा के ले आए, अम्मी को जो है तुम्हारे ऊपर दया आ गया, ठीक है, तो हम घर ले आए तुम्हें, तुम तो हमारे भाई हो नहीं। और मैं एक बेवकूफ सा बच्चा, मतलब गांव का, एक तो शहर में आने के बाद आई वाज लॉस्ट, आई वाज अंडर सो प्रेशर इन टर्म्स ऑफ एक मिशनरी स्कूल, और उसी स्कूल में हम तीनों भाई थे, मेरे दोनों बड़े भाई वो दोनों उस स्कूल में टॉपर थे, तो टीचर्स का भी एक अलग अटेंशन मिलता था। एंड माय फादर्स फ्रेंड, आई मीन की जो वाइफ थी, शी वाज द टीचर देयर, अगेन एड ऑन प्रेशर ऑन मी। So I was always under surveillance of people, and I was like, तारे जमीन है क्या बच्चा, डिस्लेक्सिया तो नहीं था मुझे, but I was like, कहाँ आ गया यार, मैं तो I mean, अच्छा भला अपने बागीचे में था, I used to be so, वो लोग I mean, स्कूल जाते थे, they used to put lot of cream powder and all that, so I used to look at them, and मेरा purpose was not to look good, but मेरा purpose था यार, they are fair and I need to apply so that I get fairer, I mean, to them, and then it was always a comparative kind of mode. So वो एक चीज थी जो अक्सर मुझे उन दिनों I used to feel, and the color got lost because of measles. उस दौर में मुझे मीजल्स हुआ था, जिसकी वजह से मेरा रंग जल गया था। मेरी अम्मी का कहना ये था कि you were a fair child when you were born, and you were severely ill, and as a result of which you were not taken right care in the village and all that, so you lost your, आज तक मुझे ये शिकायत है अपनी अम्मी से, मैं कहता हूँ यार क्या है आप मतलब so ये है इसके पीछे हिस्ट्री।
And also, Nafis, you captured a haunting loneliness, in the childhood as well as in adulthood. You spoke about that as well, and what you do in your lonely moments. And like I was telling you, that only the boys were remembering the mothers in the letter.
Right. एक हसास किस्म का इंसान हूं मैं हसास यानी सेंसिटिव, और ये सेंसिटिविटी के पीछे मैं रिसोर्स कम थे। मेरे फादर का एक गोल आउटराइट था कि बच्चों को डॉक्टर बनाना है। माशाल्लाह दोनों बड़े भाई, एक सर्जन है, एक चाइल्ड स्पेशलिस्ट हैं। फिर रफ्ता रफ्ता वो लोग AMU चले गए, दे हैड गॉन टू AMU, अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी। all out, when I came from village, again, I mean, in that letter I'm mentioning that I'm missing my village. Somewhere I was not able to fit in. I used to be very uncomfortable. The meaning of education as in exam में जाके लिखना है, that itself was, मुझे बहुत बाद में समझ में आया। Maybe class 7 में मैंने अच्छा रिजल्ट किया कि एग्जाम में जाके लिखना पड़ता है पास होने के लिए, और पास होने के लिए पढ़ना पड़ता है। वो एक कि भाई स्कूल हम जा रहे पढ़ने के लिए, वहां जाके पढ़ना होता है, एंड घर आके होमवर्क करना, वो समझ ही नहीं थी मुझे। एंड मेरे बड़े भाई वो AMU चले गए। बात ट्रेडिशन, एक रवायत थी, सारे लोग क्वालिफाइड थे, सबके सब AMU में थे। तो मुझे बहुत बाद में जो है ना ये समझ में आया, ओके, in order to achieve something in life you have to study. Okay, my brothers had done well, I need to do well. Teachers used to give attention to me just because by virtue of my brothers. Then in class 7 I did a very good result, and then from there I picked on. But वो एक खालीपन अपने आप से हमेशा रहा मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि somewhere I'm very innocent, amateur, temperamental था मैं। अगर कोई मुझे जरा सा भी मेरे अपने मैं को अगर ठेस पहुंचाता था, अगर मैं अपने आप में हूँ, तन्हा हूँ, अगर वहां पे कोई लोग मुझे कुछ कहते थे, I used to get very irritated. भाई मैंने होमवर्क तो कर लिया, अब क्या चाहिए, leave me alone. टेरेस में मैं तन्हा हूँ, मैं भाईजन से नहीं बात कर रहा हूँ, मैं हाँ I will pass, don't worry, I'll get good result, I'll come to AMU, don't worry, don't bother me, I'm all good. I was a very good sportsman, but वो सारी चीजें मैं करता था, but I never used to enjoy all that. So इस वजह से मैंने वो तन्हा रहने की बात की।
I hear you, and there's so much of resonance. I'm sure each one of us identify with being invisible, and that defense mechanism is like, I don't need you. When you want love so much that you say you don't want it, I'm sure we have all had it as children, and it's so heartening to see you recollect it with so much of authenticity and honesty, and to, that's really heartwarming. And also it again demystifies our belief that even if it is gendered, it is all of us.
Sanjini, I would like to add one line here, if I'm allowed to, if
Yes,
there is any
please.
time slot or something. Can I speak?
Please go ahead.
All right. Okay. In that letter I had in the last May, I wrote, about life after parents. Right. एक आज तक मुझे एक चीज, हमारी फैमिली में एक चीज मुझे अब तक समझ नहीं आई, and still I contemplate and try to figure out love and respect, right? एक अच्छी परवरिश, वो सारी चीजें अपनी जगह है, ठीक है। एक अच्छा प्रोफेशनल, एक अच्छी क्वालिफिकेशन, बट एक दूसरे को की जो समझ है, somewhere I feel that is again one of the reasons I still feel lonely, how life will be without parents, because understanding की जो बात है, we all have our own journey, right? We brothers, we all have our own journey, but somewhere still I feel that understanding of an individual person to personality type, since I am in HR now, with the passage of time I'm able to give words to those feelings जो मुझे उन दिनों हैरान किया करती थी, और मैं समझ नहीं पाता था कि यार how will I cope up with this pressure. वो आज वो emotional agility मैं महसूस कर पाता हूँ कि feel it and believe it in your emotional truth to excel. There was a lot of pressure on me, to make hat-trick of doctors, and I used to feel very lonely. Oh God, what is this? So इसमें से मैंने last का जो line लिखा है, how life will be without parents.
Exactly.
So वो thought वहां से आया.
That's what it. And you said something very interesting just now, which Farah expressed, and I was very moved by that line when you said, Farah, that you will find words to describe things that bothered you then. So you're telling the 8-year-old that right now they bother you, but you don't have the words, just what Nafis said. And you said, as you grow up, you'll find those words. Maybe you can put your question to Farah now. That's interesting.
Farah, I already asked.
Oh, you already asked her.
You did a lovely thing about mentioning that line.
And talking, just if I can add to that, Farah, I quite enjoyed, that very interesting time travel that you did from your grandfather to your daughter. It was all covered. And just like Shalini did, she just encapsulated her whole life journey in the letter. That was very beautiful to read.
I'm very excited to see Sudhaji come, because I have been very heartened by, she called me up and said, how do I submit it? And then she, and there was this, even today before the meeting, it's like, how do I log into Zoom? But it was so authentic. I gave him Anirban's number and said that if you face any problem, call him, but you should be there. I mean, that came from very, a very strong need to be a part of this, and I loved that. I mean, that made it 10 times your participation to me. I was going through your letter one more time as I was making notes for today evening, and one phrase that jumped up to me is that, invisible child. We all fell to that way, just as Nafis said, just as each one of us said. We all felt invisible, because back then our parents didn't read parenting books. I think they were so busy tending to the elders in the family that the only place they could take out their, whatever is on us, because we were on the receiving end. And especially talking of moms, I think the dynamics were such that we were the only ones who were in par position, somebody who they could take it out on. And I'm just, making an assumption. I'm not putting words into your letter, but that phrase of invisibility really jumped up to me. And it's so true, as much as it is true that we have all had a good life despite that, irrespective of that. And maybe at times due to that, it made us resilient. I mean, just as, very lovingly Shalini as well as Vidya said, the same thing, but to put it into alternate narratives. Sudhaji, if I can ask you, because you spoke about being in the twilight zone and etc. What is that one thing that you want us, the rest of us on the screen, to know about life that you have seen through your age and wisdom?
No, pardon. What is your question?
My question is that what is that one advice you want to give to the rest of us?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sudhaji. She wants your advice on life.
Acha, okay.
What you've learned.
On life. I would say that life is constantly a fight. From the very beginning, even as a kid, you have to fight. You don't get anything unless you fight for it. And it goes on. And even at this age, my age, twilight zone, I think still if I live like I want to live a full life, I have to fight every day. So just be courageous and ready to fight, not just resign. Never get retired. That's what I would say.
Lovely. Thank you.
But
that's precious.
More people talk so much. Should I? Is there time for me to talk also? Hello?
Yeah, I mean, we could move on to the next question because we are past 7 o'clock. So we could move on to the next question and cover. I have another 4 or 5 questions and then will come the results. So I'm just rushing up a bit here. So thank you so much for, I think that's lovely advice. Never retire. Simple. Shushok Gotoda, I'll come to you next.
Yeah.
We spoke about many things.
But the next question?
Yes, I'm now going to ask another person who participated in the campaign, Susangat. He wrote a very lovely letter about his childhood, of course, no points for guessing, but 2 things which I loved particularly. One is the thing about load sheddings, and it brought in my mind, all those pictures of shadow fingers on the walls and mosquitoes whizzing. And the other thing he spoke about is that he crossed the road and his parents would be, and his mother particularly would be scared and anxious. And now he goes across the globe and he perhaps, has the permission to do that. And yet there's a part of him that wants that parent figure to know and to, to bow down to, and that yearning inside each one of us to be taken care of, I think, as a child. If you could speak a little bit about any of the 2 ideas or anything else. I loved your letter and it was really a trip down nostalgia.
And packed with a lot of feelings.
Yes. And very sensory. I'm sorry, I'm not stopping to ask the question. Very sensory. It was almost like we could be in that moment while reading it. It was very, very experiential.
Good evening, everyone. I am blessed to have a wonderful childhood. I was the only son and I had a sister, and my parents were very progressive during those days. They had a love marriage, intercaste marriage way back in 1960s. Mothers had a very strong influence on the children those days. Nowadays, fathers has come up and taken the load of parenting. But those days, though my mother had a well qualified education, but she opted out to take care of us and not go for a career. So mothers had a strong influence on us. So I remember this whole incident. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and during those days, you had small locality, and I just wanted to buy a piece of chocolate. So I went across and went to that shop. And in not unlike now, during those days, everybody knew each other, right? So I used to remember, just to, there are so many things. There was only one telephone in the whole locality, and that telephone was a scary thing, because only death news used to come to that, right? Somebody's passed away, so that number was given to everyone. So if the telephone rings, that means something unfortunate has happened. It was not like today that, my son, when he goes for a job, and if he doesn't text me that I have reached office, I get scared. So it's not unlike that. So I went across to the shop to buy a chocolate, and for 15 minutes I was not at home. And when I came back and I told my mom innocently, I went to. She was so scared, and she told me, you shouldn't do it like this. Nowadays we allow our children to go across anywhere. That and especially now, when I don't have my dad right now, I have my mom. I personally feel that I have lost umbrella and top. I have no one to go and look forward for advice. Everybody look advices from me, my son, my wife, my friends, my colleagues. But sometimes I feel that I also need to go and someone and sit down during this situation. What should I do? So I miss that extremely. And these are the few incidents. One of the incidents is what Sinjini told, is load shedding, which most of us is unaware right now. Whenever there was a power failure, it was a joyful moment for us. I used to remember mom in the afternoon, she used to clean the lanterns, and whenever there is a power failure, she used to clean the wick and used to put on the lights. And then all four of us, that's my sister, my dad, and my mom, and we used to go and sit for a game of Ludo. And inevitably, like gender, me and my mom, my sister and my dad, it's a cross-sexual type of thing. So, and I would remember my dad, she was short-tempered, and he used to, whenever he is he was about to lose, he used to just say, I'm not going to play. So those were fun moments which we don't do right now. And these are the things which actually bothers me a lot right now. That's why I said I had a wonderful childhood, devoid of any mobile, devoid of any computers, we had only books as an entertainment. As I said, Enid Blyton, Hardy Boys, Nancy Drews, these are the things which we grew up. And Professor Shanku, Satyajit, these are the things. And that is why I think we had a very, very blessed childhood. And I'm blessed for that. Nowadays we have to coax our children to read. During those times we didn't. I used to remember there was a newspaper used to come at 3:30 in our house, because we were in a small town, and the only train which brought that newspaper was at 3:30 in the afternoon. So communication was something which is unheard of. I left home at 86 when I was, my parents were grateful enough. I'm grateful to them because they have allowed me to, because being to leave their home and go for looking for a job. And I used to write a letter to my mom when I reached there, and that letter used to reach after 7 days to her. Imagine nowadays your kid going out of your house and sending information that they have reached their destination after reaching that information after 7 days. I would get crazy. I would just simply get crazy. But see the patience of my parents, of our parentage, that they had that patience because they had no option, and they only thought well of us, and they said my son is safe. So these are the things which I still miss. And yeah, it has its own advantage and disadvantages. And I thank Sinjini and Lighthouse to bring out this inner feeling, which I always kept in a small dark place in my heart, and which I could able to pour it out. Thank you so much.
That was such a recording for each one of us. Yes, I mean, and so relatable as well.
Absolutely.
I'm now taking a quick stock of time. We have Jyoti, Charu, and Arunima and Anirban to talk to in terms of the letters, and then we'll come to the results. So I will, I mean, as much as I cannot, it's almost like sitting cross-legged and around a fire circle and chit-chatting. And I wish I didn't have to bother about time, but we have to. So I will go quickly to each one of you, but not to say that you should tell your stories too quickly. Take your time, speak at least for a little while to give us a glimpse of your times at 8 years. Next, I'll come to Charu, because a few of us spoke about father figures and mother figures, and Charu's later brought that out very clearly. Though she also came with a lot of redemption, saying that I now understand why tough love is important. Charu, how has your parenting, where is Charu? I can't, did she step out? Cannot see her. So, okay, then in that case, let me come to Jyoti.
Arunima is here.
Arunima is here, and Arunima's question is so dear to my heart. I'm just saving her for the end. Because she's a dear girl. She spoke to my, like, I don't know, there's so much there to unpack. I thought I'll come to it after Jyoti. Jyoti spoke about playing your own parent now that we are grown up, and a very specific example, like, you know, like all of us would hate to get up in the morning as children, but now we get up on time. So the parent has now got, it's almost like, you know, it's a chip that has got inside us now.
That's right. Zuku is what she calls the little one, right? And
yes.
And she just, it's like a reality check on Zuku.
Yes. So Jyoti, I mean, I'm, you know, to give it very academic terminology, it's like, you know, being the child, being the adult, being the parent inside us, I am okay, you are okay, etc. But we have become our own naysayers. And I think we have to take a break at times and write ourselves the permission slip. So what do you say about being your own parent now, and how do you navigate that crisis between being a child and being a parent together?
I think I could never grow up.
Good.
So from all the areas of my life, I see, I still, you know, every time something would go wrong, I, you know, just give a call to my mom and, or maybe my dad, and then I would be like, oh, this is what ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, aise bol diya, ye kar diya, wo kar diya, and they would be, you know, for the first 20-25 minutes when I'm cribbing, they would be listening to me, and then they would say, okay, calm down. अब ठीक है, अब हो गया ना, बता दिया, अब क्या करना चाहते हो? So they know that I'm by nature, I'm very rebel. And when I have decided to do something, even if it is going to be futile, I would still do it. So I may pick up a fight, maybe at a metro station, maybe on the road, and then I would be very unhappy, and I would tell them that this is what I want to do, and I would do it. They do not tell me anything whether do it or not, because they know I'm going to do it. But I think I could never be parent of my own. I always need them. And the kind of connection that we share with the parents, no matter how many complaints do we have, the fact is, you know, there is some connection. No one can take their place. For example, yesterday I was about to travel, and there were some sarees, you know, I had with me, and they belong to my mom. Okay, so my mom wanted me to get them home. She tried calling me, and she could not connect with me. Today when I came, I, you know, opened my bag and I was like, see, I have got these for you. She said, yesterday only I wanted to communicate the same to you and I could not. How the hell did you know it? And let's see, this is the connection. So all the food at the home made is for me. If I'm not there, it would be difficult to finish, because nobody would be as fond of food as I am. So I think I always need them, and they still parent me. I do not parent myself. Somehow all the things they were trying to teach me when I was a child, you know, to get up early, I don't know how come it happened that it, like, maybe because I'm living independently, somewhere else now, not with my parents, and I know there are things to catch up. My younger brother living with me. So somehow my biological clock has said that I have these many things on the list, and to finish them, I need this much of the time, and that's how I get up. Otherwise, as a child, I could never get up. They would pull my blanket. Only then I'll crave and I'll cry that you did not allow me to sleep. And you would be amazed to know and surprised and shocked that when they would wake me up, and ask me to go to toilet, I would be spending there 30 minutes and they knew that I'm sleeping inside. So I had my own ways to find, the time to sleep. And as a child, I never used to sleep during the day. Whatever I wanted to do in terms of sleep, it has to be in the morning. So that's how it was. And I think this is how I'm going to be. I'm not going to grow up ever. They would always be there to parent me. And I would be happy with the arrangement that we have.
So lovely. And the child is very much alive in your voice. I mean, so vibrant and so animated. And frankly, a silent word of prayer going inside my head also, like touch wood, really. The few of us who are blessed to have our parents, to be their child still. Seriously, I think, I hope and I pray and I wish for all of us,
I always tell. The child. So every time when I come home, or if I see a colleague of mine who is not living with the parent going home, and when they come back, I say, you look younger whenever you come after living with your parents. And I have my own reason that when we live with the parents, we do not have that sense of responsibility. We always feel that, there is someone we can go to. Every time we would be in some difficulty, they would know it, even if we do not say it. They would know it. So, that sense of responsibility that goes away when we are next to them, it makes us feel younger. It makes us feel, that we are still a child. There is somebody to look after us, and it keeps us younger.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It definitely also sent us, I mean, there is no one shade, right? It's all like, it's both true and false for each one of us. And I'm very, tempted to talk about the difference, the very nuanced difference between moments and memories. Moments are here and now and the truth and the 360-degree view, but memories are so selective. And the way we look at memories, the way we weave our narratives is what makes us, I guess.
It does.
Orunima, I come to you, and I really did save you for the, for the penultimate before I come to Anirban, the last thing.
Thank you. It's one. I must say, it's wonderful. My butts are hitting now because I have been sitting throughout the day in different meetings, but I still wanted to be here. And I went to the other room and said, I'm going live in a meeting and let me do the touch up.
Oh, you are looking pretty, very pretty. And thank you so much. There's so much in common. We should, I'm sure each one of us on the screen, we have hardly met each other. Like few of us know each other from before. I also haven't met physically many of you guys, but there is a connection that's happening that doesn't happen over years of familiarity. So I'm grateful for that.
There is definitely some connection.
Yes. All of us who have chosen to be here today consciously. Arunima, your letter is a letter attributed, I think, to all of mankind, womankind, humankind. I mean, it was very heartening, and all the members of the jury also spoke about very specifically that element of things that are not our doing, that we carry the cross. I mean, we carry the cross. Nobody tells us why we do that, the guilt and the shame. We just carry the cross. She spoke about stain marks on girls' skirts out of having periods, which they would then pour liquid ink on, or, to be touched inappropriately. And the very fact that it is not that incident, but how the weight sits on our heart and how we cannot say it, how we cannot report it, how we cannot, having a voice or not having a voice as a girl. And it was really very close to my heart. I mean, you spoke my heart as you spoke about your childhood. So I know you're a fantastic speaker. I would leave it to you to speak more.
Right. Well, I just feel so blessed to be here. It definitely took a lot on me to be able to make it to this meeting. So I was very silent. I apologize. I did not reply to the mails. I was like, I don't even know whether I can commit, but I'm listening to each one of you, and I feel so blessed to be able to share this platform. Thank you, Sanjini. Thank you, Lighthouse. Thank you, each one of you here. I mean, I am just overwhelmed at the beginning, but I will just pick up from what, and there's so much resonating. Like, absolutely, it's like me too. Yes, you know, whether it's the men here, whether it's the women here. I mean, it's like all humanity, as you said. You know, we are just resonating with each other, and I think that is what life is all about. That yes, we go through our experiences, but I just want to pick up from where you left, Sanjini, the memories versus the moments. You know, our life is full of moments. We may choose which moment to live by, or make it big or make it small. But memories are something that we cannot shed away. And they stay with us intrinsically somewhere. And even if I did not want to go back to my 8-year-old, just that egging that you did, okay, this campaign, it was a blessing, because years ago, I had to choose to go back to my 8-year-old and maybe my childhood, because there were memories that I was carrying, pleasant, unpleasant, both. I have my fair share of pleasant memories. I have beautiful, beautiful memories of lovely times with my parents, my family. But there are these memories of unpleasant stuff, which was creating those holes and that wheel, that circle that was just keeping on playing, where I felt so trapped. And one fine day, I had to say, I need to go and meet those memories. And I had to take a lot of courage. And I had to and I was pushed to it, actually, because it was just so heavy on my heart, heavy on my soul, that I had to just say, I need a release. Enough is enough. I have to just go meet those memories and decide to be at peace and do something about it, and not carry them up. And now those memories, which were painful, are beautiful, in the sense that now when I am able to speak of those memories, or now when I'm able to share of those memories, now when I'm able to express those in the words that I have now, as against what my 8-year-old self was, I see so much of resonance. I see so much of comfort, and I see so much of love that I am then able to share with others who may have gone through those also. And in the way, as you also said earlier on, it's good for us, no, whatever happens. And things happen, they have already been planned, however we may able to see it. But it shapes us, and it shapes us beautifully. And I think it's on us to be able to take all that and say, yes, this is who I am. I'm not ashamed anymore. I don't have to live in the dark of those painful memories. I don't have to be in shame all the time. I don't have to be trapped. This is who I am. And when you are able to have that empowerment, and you are able to give that empowerment, and you're able to put your arms around people and say, I understand that dark skin. I understand you from where you're coming, as to being the third daughter. I understand you from where you feel the loss of a parent not waiting anxiously for you. And, and the same way I feel like, yes, maybe I was touched inappropriately. Maybe I saw things in my class which I didn't understand as an 8-year-old. Thank God that I was able to now go back to those memories and say, I don't have to be trapped by them, that it can be liberated. So that's where I am, I guess.
Well, it's so wonderful, really. It was so hard-hitting to read your piece, And and you also captured the confusion that you felt as a child and now you're kind of decoding it. So important.
No, seriously, I was reminded of this one quote I read recently, that it's one thing to be free and it's quite another thing to claim that freedom for yourself. And it's really touching. And Arunima, you balanced it so well to say that it's not that there aren't pleasant ones. It isn't there aren't unpleasant ones. It's about owning them all and to let them, to let them process.
Yes.
That's right.
And I think as we go on this narrative of telling our stories, meeting our younger self, as you so beautifully are trying to help each one of do that, I think when we embrace and when we are set free, there's so much of joy. And I think you so wonderfully said that, my mission is to see that we are all on the path of joy. When we are able to meet those little selves of ours and we are able to embrace them, then we feel that freedom and then we are set free. And then there's so much of joy. And we go, like almost patting ourselves like, okay, I'm fine now. It's okay. So, yeah, thank you for allowing us.
Thank you. Gratitude from the bottom of my heart to each one of you. I finally come to Anirban. For many of you who know, he's my better half. And so it makes it a little bit of a, what do I ask him about his childhood? A lovely thing that jumped from his letter was the thing about that one sentiment. The moment I say that, I'm sure each one of us here on the screen are going to be taking that moment of, yes, grandmothers. Grandmothers, our childhood cannot be complete without our reference to the grandmothers. The sleeping beside the grandmothers, the late night, sleeping with stories, the things that they said yes to, that parents said no to. And few of us, myself included, many of us have been brought up more by the grandmothers because the grandmothers were more around us around the time we were growing up. When we were hungry, we would call out to the grandmothers to give us food. Anirban's letter, because a lot has been spoken about childhood already. So I wanted to come to you with the question and the narrative of grandchildren and grandparents. Tell us a little bit about that, and of course all the other secrets that you shared with your 8-year-old.
I love that,
Yes, Suchitra, if you want to extend that question, I know you had.
It's the secrets that made me smile, and there was so much of humor underlining all that, because that's childhood is all about secrets and whispers. Anirban.
I mean, frankly speaking, what Shinjini did, it absolutely not done. Because whenever I left Calcutta, I took myself the song from the film Aladdin, and with that one line, I can't go back where I used to be. And she made me doing that. Because every time I went back, I remember that, though I don't know, I mean, in my religious belief, I know that maybe I'm a Hindu, but everyone knows that Hindu is not a religion, it's more of a practice. And it's being in Calcutta, that the sense of atheism that the first revolt against God, actually, I mean, I was very dramatic as a child, and I personally feel that if I was very close to my grandmother, my paternal grandmother here I am referring to, and that particular night she passed away. I don't know, I mean, people thought that, I mean, she is sleeping, but I was the only one who was sitting next to her. I could see that we all know that after we pass away, the water start leaving our body. And I could see the water is dripping from her mouth. And immediately I started calling my dad, my mom, what's happening? Because prior to that, for almost 2 and 3 years, when she got that heart attack, and then everyone thought that, I mean, she may not recover. I kind of pleaded every picture of God, every calendar, every idol, whatever, that please save my grandmother, please save my grandmother. But Sorry. So finally, when doctor came almost at very late night and announced that she has passed away, I just ran away to the room where all the pictures and everything is there. I tear off all the calendars, I throw away all the frames, and I said that from this day onward, I don't believe on. So, and after that, those things happened that people actually started talking about. It happened that if someone passed away, they try to take away the near and dear ones maybe after 7 days or 15 days. I wanted to tell them that my grandmother loved me. She can't do any harm for me. It's not that I'm in danger, but actually, I mean, my parents took me to a kind of pujari, and it gives a kind of thing that tied in my arm that I won't die in next 15 days. It was that close that everyone used to think that I was that close to my grandmother that she will take me away with her. And I was extremely, extremely naughty child. I mean, I would rather say notorious child in that entire locality. I mean, if somebody had a fight during cricket with my brother, I just took away the wicket and blast their nose. And then if the kite flying is happening, I just tear off the rope, and people came to our house to beat me. And I used to do all sort of these naughty things, and my grandmother used to stand for me and say that, dare you cross me and then touch this child. So, and even if that also, I used to bother her so much. It was a very frequent thing. Every 15 days or once in a month at least, she used to run away from our house and say that I'm not going to stay in this house until and unless you tame this child. So she was there with me. I don't know, I can't express what kind of memories I had with her. All the moments, all the jigsaw of moments had created that entire picture of memory for me. She was there, and that's all I can say. And again, I can say, I want to say this is not done. Don't bring us back to our past.
The first.
Thank you for
unforgettable. Yes. Thank
you. This total narrative, collective narrative and collective trip down the memory lane has got to a place where now the rest of it is really inconsequential and nobody cares about competition. This was not meant to be a competition in the first place. Only that in order to make it a campaign, I had to create a noise around it. I had to, in fact, I think it was a mistake, because what I assumed is that people would need that kind of a bribe to be able to participate, but no, I'm sure not. But of course, we went through that process. There is a board of jury, Suchitra, Shoumodipda, and Katarzyna, who is in Poland. She couldn't join us, but we have the two very esteemed and very, very creative and very erudite jury members with us. So there are two news, as they say, a good news and a bad news. So the bad news first. We thought we will call out and select the top 3 positions of this campaign. But unfortunately, we will not be able to do that. We will only be able to declare and do that for the top 2 positions. And now the good news. The juries were so hard pressed, and it was so difficult that we ended up with, after much deliberation and after being practically almost, not physically, but really pushed to the wall, we could come up with 5 people on the second position with a difference of just 1 mark. And for the first position, 2 people. So it is the top 2 positions are 7 people. And again, this is not a competition at all, but I still want to use this platform to announce the results, whatever that means to any of you. We will be sending out very small things to the people. And I want to first invite Shomodipda, who has been one of the most patient listeners, and he has, I mean, his body of work is so deep, and I'm a huge admirer of the depth he brings through his films, and a lot of, you know, music, and there's no end to, I don't think I can finger count the number of things he does. So I would invite Shomodipda to please read out the names and maybe briefly the comments the juries have given to the second position holders, the 5 names.
Give me 2 minutes before I figure it out. Listen, the one thing I wanted to add, and that was, I think when Vidyaji was speaking, right, I just wanted to add that, you know, what we don't realize is that there is a sharp distinction in our society, which is privilege based. We don't understand that, we bypass it, we keep it, we don't realize it, but that also becomes a big, you know, that's the narrative, you know, at a given point of time, and that differentiates a set of people, you know, and then the stories are so different that, you know, you cannot weigh such stories because each have their own depth, and, you know, kind of, it tells a lot, you know. And that's one thing, you know, which I was so taken, I mean, like, by what Vidyaji said, that you know, coming from a privileged level, you don't realize a whole lot of things. Okay. And I think being at a privileged this thing, you know, like, we need to also, everybody needs to understand, you know, like that that the equation and the balance are too, you know, I don't know how to put it, you know. So Vidyaji, I mean, thanks to you for narrating that. I'm sorry,
Thank you so much.
I just mentioned that, you know, like, that made a big this thing to me, at least personally. Yeah, I think I
have
the
it
first
open?
one, right? Yeah, the
Awesome.
thing. Wait, I think I misplaced it, man. Wait, this is stupid. Hang on, just a sec. I would say you narrate it, I'll find it by that time.
Oh, then let me do something. Let me invite Suchitra to read out the second position holders with the comments. And by that time, if you figure out the file, you can read out the first position holders.
I'm okay. She can go ahead with that.
Okay, so, well, I so thoroughly enjoyed being on the panel and reading those absolutely endearing pieces written straight from the heart. And so thank you so much, Sinjini, for this very, very enriching experience, and the talk today, you know, that was so beautiful, every moment of it. Okay, so in the second place, we have 5 people, and I'll start alphabetically. Okay, we have Arunima Gomes, and we all, yeah, we can, yes, a round of applause for Arunima. And like I said, they were painful, confusing memories met with authenticity. That's what we really liked. Second name is of Anirban Guha. The secrets shared made us smile. And that was like a continuous motive in the whole letter. We have Charu Vashishta. Charu, what I liked was that you addressed the letter and you wrote it just with the words an 8-year-old would understand. You know, there were no difficult words. It was just written directly and effectively to an 8-year-old. And then we have Malika Sothinathan. He added photos, so that added to the nostalgia. It was again a very lovely, endearing letter. And the 5th name we have is Susangat Ghosh. As we've already, it was wonderful to know and read and hear from you firsthand. And now it's over to you, Shomandeep.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah, I'm sure
the
you.
first two, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So we have Sudha Dikshit as one of them. Okay. Congratulations. Figurative language brought out emotions. It was a beautiful piece of thing, and I think we have discussed enough about it. And of course, the other person is Vidya Krishna, and I think it was very, very emotional, and like kind of. I think once you shared it, it basically it also it takes a lot out from you when you share it with people, and I think and I mean there are a lot of people who don't share. I really admire and appreciate that you could, and that's very, very important to shed your innovations and kind of come up and talk about it, because that makes a bigger difference, I guess. It was a very poetic expression in free verse, so thank you for sharing, and
Thank you
congratulations.
so much. Thank you. Means a lot to me.
Thanks.
Congratulations, everyone. And it was
all of
it
you.
was immense pleasure to be with all of you and listening to you, I must say.
Great.
And each one of you who wrote, I mean, each one of you, I'm not calling out the names whose name was called out, or even the ones who, trust me, there are only 3 scores. If the highest number is X, then there's X minus 1, there's X minus 2. That's all. Each one of you, Jyoti,
Each
Nafis,
letter is a
one of the letters were, yeah, it was, I mean, it was only because we have got n number of very small things from our gift partners. I had to, I mean, I'm sure this is totally inconsequential to each one of you who agreed to write and were willing to open your heart and do this. And I think that itself is such a testimony. I'm really
I'll add something here.
Yes.
So in the morning, I was reading a book, and they were just talking about competition and winning, and how they mentioned it, that for any competition that happens, there are just 3 trophies. So everyone who initiates to participate there is the winner. But only we will see the trophies only 3 hands, because mathematically it is not possible that everybody gets the trophy. So everybody is the winner, but you will see the trophies only in the hands of 3 people. That's how it is.
Yes.
True.
Yes, absolutely.
No, in fact, when Srinjini started that, I was wondering whether people would even, send anything, because it's so personal to oneself, and I was weird. I was like, then I said, maybe, we were all, crossing our fingers kind of. And then when it ended up, the other thing which I told her was that, how can you evaluate something which is so personal and emotional, because it's all in pockets, right? You don't have a reference point between the two. But I think, I think it was more other, things which are other parameters, as to how you express stuff like that, all rolled together. So there is, like everybody said, everybody's a winner, but I think but it was an amazing experience from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think the exercise was to mean that
we actually lost Sudha Dikshit in between, so she managed to join back. Unfortunately, she missed the announcement. So maybe if you can just want to touch with her for a while.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sudha, yeah. Go ahead, Srinjini. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So Sudhaji, congratulations! Very, 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 very heartfelt congratulations. So you have been placed among the tie position in the first place, and we really loved your letter. And again, just to give a close, I mean, there is no closing. This is not a closing. This is trying to come home, and the journey is long. My only objective with this was really to give ourselves a taste of what it is, and also to maybe try to push and prod to become ourselves, because everybody else is taken. So let's be ourselves.
Really.
And everybody else is taken.
No, actually, when I mentioned in my letter as well, that when I was 8 years old or 10 years old, I look up to the people who are at my age right now in the 40s or 50s. And we used to kind of hate a typical kind of 40s and 50s people. And I still remember that what kind of people I used to hate. And that's my constant try, that I should not be like that kind of 40s or 50s that I used to hate in my 8 and 10s. So that is what I try to do. I know that is very difficult. And when I have to scold my daughter for not studying or not listening to me, I usually stop myself because I know that I was like that. So how could I scold myself only? So this is a very, 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 very enjoying thing, I mean, that we have done. I mean,
and as a direct result of this exercise, I think 2 days ago I rescued a UKG student, because his mother called me and she said he's falling behind in class. Can you take tuitions for him? I didn't know how old the child was. How old is he? He's in UKG. I said, you just leave him alone for the next 5 years. Otherwise, if he starts hating studies, then for the 10 years, you're going to be struggling with him. So I think I was instrumental in rescuing that child.
That's a good one.
We just don't want to let go of this meeting. I mean, I don't want to.
I don't want to. I really don't.
Really.
Let's do something. I think we are at 7:50. So let's use I'm kind of in our mind, let's keep 8 o'clock as the ending time and let's utilize the next 10 more minutes. I think
in that case, I would really love to invite a few people who haven't spoken actually. Jhilambi is here and few others who have not spoken. Nalini,
I think they have left.
No, Jhilambi is here. So anything about your childhood you want to share? I mean, briefly.
Unmute yourself, please. Yeah.
Or just by being in this meeting, how you felt?
Yeah. I love this meeting really because I love my childhood. I've gone through a lot of stuff and I'm always very proud of it. Also, sometimes sad about some of the stuff, but that's why I couldn't open my heart and share in a letter because there's too much to write if I go on starting. And I can't really figure out that 8-year-old. I have like from 6 to 10, there's a whole lot of phase, lots of growing up, lots of stuff. Yeah. So, but one thing I remember is my shifting. You know, I've kept on shifting in my childhood because my father was in a transferable job. So for a child, you know, to grow up, get some friends, get adjusted to the surrounding and then again move. Next 2 years, you move again. Again, you set up. For a child, it's sometimes quite challenging, but I am like that friendly kind. So I go out, make friends and get really friendly and then lose out all those friends to a new place. And there was no email, no social way to get in touch. There were only landline phones, which was attached to a wire. When I tell all these things to the children, to my own kids or my students, how when I start describing, I just go there immediately. You know, how we used to have to, for a phone call, we used to have to run to the phone place and dial from 0. If the number had too many zeros, there's so much more time spent on dialing that number. And when the kids are told that there was nothing called internet, there's nothing called Google, we had to search any answer, we had to go asking everybody, uncle, auntie, grandmother, this, that, and figure out which one might be the correct answer. There was no way to figure out. Then we had these fat encyclopedias, okay, that was gifted to us on our birthdays, which have all disappeared. They are just the books on the wall right now. I feel really sad because those big dictionaries, it makes me really feel, even if we pass on things in generations, all those books behind you, Shinjini, so many books, I don't know if the next generation and the next will even look at them as books. As a feeling we had in the corner, just take one book and sit in the corner and read a storybook. Children are doing less and less of that stuff. There's so much into this electronic world getting stuck, and we are encouraging them more and more. This whole world is changing. So that feels that we have been like, in these 40 years of my life, so much has changed in this entire world that it seems like 200 years rather than these many. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Okay.
Nalini ji, if I can please invite you to share something, how you felt being a part of this meeting.
beautiful. I really felt like, everybody sharing their childhood, and I went back to my childhood then, because otherwise I usually don't, but then I really went back to my childhood, and I was remembering each and every incident which took place, and it was very nice, beautiful. I really enjoyed it. And like my childhood was, of course, it was quite good, you can say. And we were 7 sisters. Now we are 4 left, 3 are no more, and 4 brothers. So it was a big family. And my sister had children, eldest sister had children, and we all used to have so much fun. And I always remember my childhood as fun, because my father was very strict, but I was his favorite child. So always excused, and very nice. We always used to have fun, and we had lots of servants and cook and all. So, like you can say, I have all good memories only.
Lovely. Mamta, if I can please invite you to come on video and share a little bit about yourself. So nice to see you.
Mamta, you're muted.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. And I will also say that, in fact, when Nalini was talking, so it was like she was talking same thing like what I have gone through. Like my childhood also have very good memories. I also have, we are 3 sisters and 1 brother. And I was also my father's favorite. Everybody, like, we had a fun time and very good time. So I'm blessed with all the good memories. And there was, like we were talking about genders. In fact, I think we have 1 brother and 3 sisters, but there was no gender, that they used to give preference to my brother or something like that. There was nothing like that. In fact, daughters were much more preferred, and they were given all the opportunities. And in my family, there was not much education for the girls. But my parents had, actually, not even they allowed me to study. So I'm a postgraduate, and I was the only one at that time who had studied so much. And plus, they had sent me to a co-education school, which was, during that time, it was a very big thing. Yes. So I really had a very good memories.
Lovely.
And
Thank
same
you so
thing,
much.
like now I have 2 boys, and both the boys are very this thing. They are very independent, and they do all the kitchen thing and everything.
Yeah, same here. Even my 2 boys, I have boys, and the same.
Yeah.
Like the time I see them cooking, then my daughter was.
Yeah, and they, in
One
fact,
thing I should
they
say,
don't trouble me at all. They just say कि नहीं मम्मी आप रहने दो, हम खुद से कर लेंगे सब.
Yeah.
The way means I have also brought them up like this. It is not a woman work only to means they do have all kinds of work. I'm blessed with very good children and everything.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think the other thing that came out strong, but I forgot to mention in the last round when I was trying to wrap it up, is that the personal is truly political and universal. A whole lot of things came out. Not only did we relate and identify, but we also saw the patterns, the change making, the conscious cycle of life, and how we are, while reminiscing our own memories from the past, we are also trying to make amends and trying to become the better version to our next. And I think we did a good job here today. I'm very proud of all of us who are on the screen right now, because we did, push the envelope even if a little bit. They say it's only girls. Here you see all of us. They say it's, we are selective, we are honest and open, and we are willing to open up. And I think that proves a huge point. It's almost the next step of how each one of us, and also universally, I think this is not the country, not the city, not the community. It is almost a global call to action for each one of us to go back and find peace within, and to make peace with our own authentic selves. Thank you so very much. I cannot be, I cannot say enough how much I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Cindy,